the evidence is there. VA keeps all these records, and the records show that the VBA has never produced more cases. The VHA has never taken care of more people more effectively, with people more happy with the treatment they're getting at VA. Anyway, I could go on, and I'm not going to.
No, that's great.
But anyway, I'm saying that this is return to office. I need people to stop saying return.
It's
to
return to office, or if you're so inclined to say work, it's return to in-person work.
You're right, Travis. That's what we should be saying.
Mr. Wetmore, it is very, very good to have you on. Third Executive Vice President of the National VA Council. Let's talk about the potential RIF coming down and what that means for our members. How can one prepare? What are the rights that employees have? Maybe just give us a brief overview.
So, employees. So the department has to give notice 90 days before they're going to run a RIF. And before that, people will know that, and in fact, I think people know now that there's a plan for a RIF. They don't know who it's going to affect, and the department doesn't know who it's going to affect yet. They've been directed to prepare one. Now, so the first thing the department will do is look at and say, so there's several reasons for a RIF. One of them would be that there's not enough money to fund, period. I don't think that that the problem is what is facing the department and why they would run a RIF. The other thing that happens is that they decide they're not going to do X anymore. So we're very concerned on the council with them actually cutting down on research in the department. And we're afraid that they might RIF research people.
Okay.
We understand that there are several people who are involved in research now who are in not to exceed appointments, and they're not renewing those people, and they're not moving them to career conditional appointments as they could, because they would have passed their probationary periods. So we think that may be something that's happening. I think it's a terrible idea. I think Congress may well decide that's a terrible idea. Don't do that. So it won't happen. They won't go after the research people. But I'm just using that as an example. They could decide to say, we don't need human resources anymore. They're not going to do that either. They could decide any number of things that we don't need this to happen anymore. And all the people that do this would be subject to a RIF, because the mission is no longer something that needs them to do that work. So the case that's right in front of us right now is the people who are involved in the DEI stuff. Mm-hmm. Those people were let go. As far as we know, that was 60 people. We're happy if somebody wants to tell us that they're not, because those people are all in central office, to our understanding. If there's people out there who were let go because of DEI, because of their involvement in DEI, we would love for them to contact NVAC attorney at afg.org, and we'll look into that and see what we can do about that. So that's an example of something that we think should have been done as a RIF. We're taking action on that, and so hopefully those people would be properly RIFed, in which case they would get to bump and retreat, which is bumping is you move laterally. Basically, there's another job for which you're qualified for, which is not being subject to the RIF. So you could replace that person, and that person would have to leave because you fit criteria I'm going to mention in a moment. Or retreating, which is going down and taking a demotion because you want to keep the job, but you're qualified for a lower graded job, and so you would go ahead and take that person's job. So what has to happen is there's 4 criteria that they use to rate everybody.
Okay.
They'll rate them. So veterans' preference once again, all of a sudden appears again. It appears when you first get your government employment, and after that, it doesn't appear anymore. On a RIF, all of a sudden, veterans preference becomes very important. So you get 5 points if you're a veteran with honorable service, get 10 points if you have a compensable service-connected disability. Those points get added on to how long you've been on the job, your tenure, which is a little different thing, and then your performance.
Right.
So this is, again, we tell people all the time nowadays, we've been telling people since January 20th, and we saw this coming, and we said we need to tell people need to print out their EOPF.
Okay.
Because that has their performance evaluations. That has all their Form 50s and shows how long they've been on this job and how long they've been with the whole department, and would also represent their service computation date, which would tell them how long they have. That would all go towards their points as to their standing if a RIF affects them. So very important to do that. I don't think I can really talk properly about RIFs really beyond that. So,
Sure.
But I appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. What are some other ways that they can get prepared? I know we talked about, making sure that your information is up to date with AFGE and with NVAC. Is there any other resources that people need to know about as far as staying connected, staying informed, so that they can have the most up-to-date information?
Yeah. So, the Federation has a webpage. It's at afg.org. And you just need to be a member, and you go in and you put in your membership number, and then you put in a password, and then you get access to that webpage. The council's webpage doesn't require that. Anybody, the public, Joe Snodgrass down the street can access the council's webpage if he's interested in doing that. And so we do have information on the council's webpage. We have a lot of information that you are responsible for posting out there, and you're doing a terrific job.
Thank you, sir.
And we've got, so there's all kinds of stuff. There's stuff that directly bears on the council, and there's stuff that's kind of collateral interest that we want people to know about. Mm-hmm. So again, the council's webpage is afgenvac.org. It kind of follows. Mm-hmm. And so, people want to stay connected. That's a good way to find out, what we're thinking about, what policy what guidance, what assistance that we're prepared to offer to people. And we're working on kind of expanding on that and making it and making it more useful than it already is. And that's a work in progress. So we're not quite there yet.
Right. Okay. That's great. Another thing that you and I have talked about often is the importance of social media and using social media to get those updates out. So what we've been doing with the council is pushing out all of the updates that legal has been very busy lately fighting. And so we've been pushing out updates for national grievances that have been filed, and even demanded bargains for things that aren't covered under the master agreement. If you could provide us with a brief overview of the activities that the legal team is doing right now in the grievance and arbitration category.
Sure. So we have national grievances that involve national issues. For example, right now we take votes in a committee, and the committee is a relative broad spectrum. We've got a Title 38 person, we've got somebody from VBA, we've got and then other people. We don't have anybody other than VHA or VBA people, but so different. Everybody's got a different kind of job that they do. So we did that intentionally. So we've got we are going to file a national grievance on the OPM email regarding what you did last week, that 5 points email that some people call it.
Okay.
We're working up an email on the probationary employees who were removed. So the Federation has gone ahead with a number of amicus briefs, which is a fancy term for people who are friendly to the one side or the other. They file an amicus brief. It's Latin. And we prevailed at the district court. A district judge said in remarkably stern and kind of entertaining language also that what OPM doesn't have any authority to fire anybody except OPM employees. So that wasn't a retroactive decision. It's not. The decision didn't include a direction to bring everybody back who had been fired. And it didn't actually have a prospective thing. It just said, you don't have the right to do this, and kind of left it to further litigation to resolve both of those points. Like, we need further litigation to, OPM can't do this at all, period. And secondly, that OPM acted improperly before, and therefore we want people returned to duty. I don't know how that's going to play out, and that will end all the way up in front of the Supreme Court. And I'm going to digress a little bit from this podcast and say that there's something called the Unitary executive theory, which holds that the president is in Article 2 of the Constitution, and he's the executive in the Constitution. And what the theory holds is the president is the law, regardless of what Congress said about the law, that the president is the law with regard to bureaucracy. That's a very simplified version of it. And so there are two judges already who have already basically said, I mean, they haven't been faced with the case yet, but they've basically said that they believe the unitary executive theory is correct. That's Judge Thomas and Judge Gorsuch. So we don't know, the 7 other judges, how they'll rule on this if he goes forward and says, I get to do whatever I want to do, basically that he's been saying all along. Will they agree with that? And will they overturn this decision that I just made? That's a constant kind of sword over our heads in this whole matter. But we do what we have to do and try and do as best we can. So additionally to the probationary period, we're going to have a national agreements on the return to office, the RTO thing. A lot of people are calling return to work. They've been working already. I don't like that.
Right.
I'm unhappy with people who say this is returning to work. No,
return to office.
That's what Republicans say. That's what, what's her name? Green has said multiple times. They're not doing working. Marjorie Taylor Greene, thank you. We're working at home. We have evidence to prove it, at least for VA. VA has never been so productive as a department. Right. And the evidence is there. VA keeps all these records, and the records show that, the VBA has never produced more cases. The VHA has never taken care of more people more effectively, with people more happy with the treatment they're getting at VA. Anyway, I could go on, and I'm not going to.
No, that's great.
Anyway, I'm saying that this is return to office. I need people to stop saying return.
It's
to
return to office, or if you're so inclined to say work, it's return to in-person work.
You're right, Travis. That's what we should be saying. So we do have. The department is telling us what we can put up on our bulletin boards now. And one of the things that many people have put up on their bulletin boards is stuff advocating for LGBTQ rights.
Okay.
And the department is torn all those down as part of their DEI thing. Okay. I think that's wrong. We can have what we want on our bulletin boards. We're filing a national grievance on the department's interfering with our bulletin boards. Good. We do have... a lot of this stuff is, the last one we filed in early February was, and as far as the national agreements was that we were getting notification from some people that the department was kind of overriding their reasonable accommodation, which allowed them to telework. So it's a lot of national agreements cover a whole bunch of people, maybe thousands of people, like the probationary one, and others would cover again a smaller. There's a group of people who telework because of reasonable accommodation that they've agreed to. The department has told me that we're not doing that kind of stuff, but we have evidence to the contrary. So we'll let that play out. I mean, I don't think we can just rely on people telling me stuff, because even management's liable to tell me all kinds of things and then change their minds later. So those are kind of the national grievances. What we do with locally, we also have a lot of local grievances. So we'll handle any locally elected or locally appointed. So stewards or your safety officer, or we've even covered like when an SME was denied the opportunity to be present in negotiations. So we will handle local grievances. We also handle at the local's option, if the president agrees, we will take a local grievance that affects just Sally Smithson or something, not a dues-paying member, hopefully, and Or we'll take a filing with the Federal Service Impasses Panel. That happens when somebody has gone through the negotiation process and is unable to reach an agreement on some proposal, and they've gone through mediation, and that has also failed, and the mediators release them to the panel. That's kind of something that maybe a lot of people do, but we don't want people to be afraid to just dig in their heels and say, no, you're wrong, and I don't want to agree to this. And again, if they're in a situation, I'm happy to take a call and we'll talk about it and see, because maybe the proposal might actually be non-negotiable, and I might be able to reframe it, and then management might agree to it. But and because management will say that's non-negotiable, and they don't mean legally non-negotiable, they just mean I can't put up with that. So we don't want people to get into that situation. So that's why we're prepared at the step where they're actually turning to the panel after the mediation process. They go to the Federal Service Impasses Panel. We'd be prepared to prepare their brief and kind of get their witnesses lined up, or however the panel wants to handle it, because the panel can force people to do different things. So we would be prepared to assist them with those different things that the panel would do. So one of those, or a grievance, or two grievances, or two FSAPs, just two at a time from a local is a kind of a new thing we do. But again, can't stress enough that that sometimes people don't seem to know this after I've said it to any number of times over the years. Again, we'll defend local officers, elected or locally appointed, whoever.
Okay,
so
that's great.
That's where the grievance and arbitration thing is.
What is the process in which locals can initiate that representation?
They contact me.
Okay.
So they would contact me. I'm B. Wetmore at afgnvac.org.
Great.
Just my Bill, and then Wetmore, my last name, Wetmore. And so if they want representation for a locally elected or appointed union representative, then all they have to do is kind of tell me what's happened.
Okay.
If they want to send me a proposed discipline or something, fine. If they want to say that these people filed for promotion and they were denied improperly or something, I mean, people get denied for promotions, but if there's something wrong with the process, happy to take that kind of case up. So it's not just limited to adverse actions that people might experience. So they would contact me, then I put the matter to a vote. So there's only been 2 times where we've turned people down. But again, every grievance has essentially 2 parts, a procedural part and a substantive part. So the procedural part is people have to file things on time. They have to go through the steps properly on time. And, so I find the Outlook calendar is very helpful for me, keeping track of stuff. Whatever people use, make sure you file stuff on time, because that's the main procedural thing. Okay. And then the substance is, did something actually happen, or is somebody afraid of something? Sometimes people just say, I know they're going to do this. Well, we can't, that's what lawyers are liable to call premature. We can't file grievances on stuff that hasn't happened yet. Mm-hmm. So there is kind of a filtering process here. But again, so the committee votes, and then we advise the Deputy General Counsel, who's Thomas Dargan, who we pay Thomas. We pay for the 5 attorneys who also Thomas supervises directly, and he would assign one of them to the case, and then they would get in touch with what we call an opening letter. They would send a letter to the person if it's as I mentioned, the earlier new criteria kind of thing, somebody who's not elected or appointed, or they would send a letter to the appointed person, and with a copy to the president and a copy to the district representative also, and just saying, like, this is what we need from you, and how we outline what we would actually do in the case. We would take the case through arbitration. Okay. Taking it to an exception, if we were unhappy with the result, that would be another consideration. We'd have to take a different vote on that.
Before we wrap it up, is there anything on your list of talking points that you wanted to touch on that we haven't yet?
Yeah, I'm always making a pitch. It's kind of my personal thing for mobilizing. And so I think it's a kind of incremental process. The end goal is to get people into the streets with signs and telling their congressman what they want, and maybe staying outside of Tesla or something. Whatever, whatever people have a mind to do, but mobilizing the strength that we have. Our strength is in numbers. It's not in money. But and the first step at that is to wear blue on Wednesdays now. We used to say red for feds, but we discovered that other unions wear red. And so we didn't want people to confuse us with them. So we're blue. AFG's colors are blue and gold. And we just went with blue because maybe not everybody wants to wear gold on Wednesdays. Secondly, PAC. That would be something. Can we talk about that here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I've got my vest on for PAC. And this was in the old days when they used to give a vest if you gave a certain amount of money. And I don't want to, I could say a lot about PAC, and I do on occasion and get people to sign up. But the thing that I want to emphasize is the fact that we can give somebody like $10,000, I think it is $10,000 before the primary, and then we can give them another $10,000 after. And we would love to be in a position of giving the congressional people that money, and that would take a whole lot more money than we have right now to do that. And if we can't give somebody at least the $10,000 after the primary and they win, we're just kind of waving at them in the as they walk down the hallway of Congress. It's an old saw, and it's kind of cynical, but money does talk.
Absolutely.
And in order to make that impression, but also the numbers talk. So it's not like people have to give $40, so that'd be great. But if they just give like $5 or even $1, so we can go to Congress and say we have a lot of money, but also we have all these people who are committed to the idea that we should be supporting legislatures who are supporting workers. So that's my short pitch about
great.
PAC.
Yes, that's awesome. And we have a very important midterm to look forward to and prep for. So
yeah.
I think that's a great plug for AFG PAC for sure.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, that concludes this episode. Thank you very much, sir. I told you it was going to be great.
You did.
You did a fantastic job.
Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you so much.